Have you ever lost your enthusiasm for the work you do, to the point that you can't muster yourself to do a good job? Have you ever felt too mentally or physically exhausted to come up with the creative ideas you're usually known for? In this season of the podcast, I'm talking about burnout. Hi and welcome to Creating Cadence, a podcast for life and work in motion. I'm your host, Mich Bondesio, a writer, coach, consultant, and the founder of Growth Sessions. And this is episode 31, the first episode of season 6, recorded in June 2022. I have a bit of an issue with my throat at the moment, so please excuse my slightly croaky voice. In season 5, which was episodes 26 to 30, I focused on the concept of intentional productivity. This is a phrase that I coined 4 years ago when I first started Growth Sessions, and this year I'm writing a book about intentional productivity, so I'd wanted to introduce my listeners to the topic. But this season, I'm looking specifically at burnout, because it plays an important role in why intentional productivity is so crucial for our well-being. So in the next 5 episodes, I'll be covering what the term actually means, how to recognize the symptoms and stresses associated with burnout, and what causes it and how to avoid it. We'll also look at methods of prevention and remedies that you can use to help break that cycle of burnout so that it doesn't keep happening to you. If you're ready, let's dive in. First, a disclaimer. I studied psychology as part of my undergrad degree, but I'm not a psychologist or a trained mental health professional, and I'm not some well-being guru either. So you may be asking, why am I qualified to talk about burnout? If you're a long-time listener, you'll know that I have a personal lived experience of extreme burnout. I've spoken about it specifically in episode 1 of the podcast, but I've also touched on it briefly in episodes 26, 27, and 28 of season 5. Based on my experience, I've since invested a lot of time and effort in learning, so I could understand how our brains and bodies work, and I could implement practices that support my health and well-being, particularly around how I work. My experience and learning has led me to transition into work that helps others to develop more mindful approaches to work, which supports their intentional productivity and helps them to create better work-life cadence too. And I'm still on a learning journey, so what I'm doing today is sharing what I've learned so far. As part of today's episode, I will talk a little bit more about my own experience. But first, let's understand what we actually mean by burnout. Burnout, B-U-R-N-O-U-T. Depending on where you are in the world, you may spell it with a hyphen, but I spell it as a single word. Either way, burnout is an umbrella term which covers mental, emotional, and physical fatigue that occurs as a result of a prolonged exposure to stress of some kind. It's mostly used in a work context, but as I know from first-hand experience, it can span the breadth of both our work and our life. It can cause a host of physical, mental, and emotional health issues, which means that often there's more than one thing that needs fixing. In 2019, the World Health Organization recognized burnout as a workplace phenomenon, but it's not classified as a medical condition. The WHO defined burnout as, I quote, a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It's characterized by 3 dimensions. 1. Feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion. 2. Increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativity or cynicism relating to that job. And 3. Reduced professional efficacy as a result of 1 and 2. Now, besides work, there are other aspects of our lifestyle and societal structures which can also increase stress and contribute to burnout. While we're all susceptible to burnout, it's most common for women, Black, Asian, and minority groups, and LGBTQ+ communities to be subjected to the stressors which cause it. The amount of time we spend online, whether that's for work or play or procrastination, also overloads our minds. The pandemic has been another major stressor contributing to burnout. Pollution and the climate crisis are also causing physical and emotional stress, so they can also contribute to burnout. A society which dictates what we wear, how we should behave, who has more power, the patriarchy, people-pleasing syndrome, systemic racism, all of these things create stress and can contribute to burnout. And finally, for those of you listening who are entrepreneurs like myself, there are particular challenges that we face which can increase our stress and cause burnout too. I'll talk about these factors in more detail in future episodes. But for now, I'll share a little bit more about my own story. Like most of you, I've experienced small bouts of burnout throughout my working life. For me, this was primarily because I'd always worked in very high-pressure, deadline-driven environments. Then, 7 years ago, I crashed and burned really badly, when my burnout experience forced me to check out of life for almost 2 years. The seeds of my epic burnout started 3 years before it actually happened, and it was a result of a period of prolonged ongoing stress on both the work and the home front. I tried to just keep going, but when it all got too much, my body finally called time out. I was incapable of working for 18 months, and it's taken me a lot longer to rebuild my life with a stronger foundation after that very difficult time. For me, burnout manifested in lots of different ways. It looked like depression and anxiety, crying and panic attacks, gut issues, skin allergies, and food sensitivities. I also couldn't sleep and I couldn't focus. My memory was totally shot and I had brain fog. I couldn't read more than 2 pages of a book at a time. Nowadays, I joke about the fact that I went from being a very capable, multitasking spreadsheet queen that everybody relied on to being unable to tie my shoelaces. There was a period of about 6 months during that 18-month experience where I cannot actually tell you how I was spending my time, because time just seemed to disappear. The days melded into one, and I felt like I was stuck in a dark grey hole with a lot of sludge at the bottom. The great news is that I found my way out, and I was able to once again become a well-adjusted member of society. I was able to do this through a variety of holistic therapies and lots of support along the way, through understanding better about how my brain and body worked, and through practicing and developing new ways of living and working. I got sick because of external stresses and personal decisions that I made or didn't make at the time. But at the time, I also wasn't equipped with the right knowledge or tools to support myself in the way that I needed. For at least a year after I started working again, I tried to hide or downplay the big gap in my working life. It was embarrassing. I felt like a total failure, and it knocked my confidence and my performance. But the end of my recovery finally came when I was ready to admit and share about my experience. And you know what? The world didn't end. People were really understanding, and that gave me the confidence to keep going. Through this journey, I've developed better ways to live and work. It's why I decided to start my coaching platform called Growth Sessions and this very podcast, so that I can help other people to do the same. Now, it isn't all hunky-dory. I do still encounter the threat of burnout or experience small doses of it when I work too hard or push too long. It's something I have to take very seriously now, because my body was affected so badly when I got sick that it now has weak points. But now I know how to recognize the signs when I might be approaching burnout, and I have the appropriate tools, skills, and foundations to help me stop, rest, or make changes so that I don't go down that road again. And you can do the same. So I'm hoping that this season of the Creating Cadence podcast will help you to think about how stress and burnout affects your life and how you can take steps to help you break the cycle. I had to learn the hard way that there is a better way to live and work, so I hope that you'll come with me on this journey of learning so that you don't have to experience the same. In the next episode, I'll be looking at stress in general and the specific stresses that influence burnout. I'll also cover the specific burnout symptoms to look out for, some of which may surprise you. If you're not already subscribed, do sign up to the fortnightly Cadence newsletter on the new creatingcadence.co website to get more resources that help you to create momentum, work with purpose, and live with intention. And you're welcome to drop me a line with your questions or comments. Please write to hello@creatingcadence.co. So thanks for listening. Until next time, be brave in making change, be open to new things, and keep moving forwards, one step at a time. Bye for now.